love that we have the upper level audience. Always a fan. Use the full space like a stadium. It's a little bit strange that we don't have Andrew here now. We're missing the middle. That's funny. It was right in the middle. All right, we're back. And I'm back too. I haven't been here in a while. We're back for Think and Link. It's a Thursday. It's February. It's not unbearably cold outside, but it's Minnesota. We're here. And we have Nick tuning in from London or England and some suburb of London, I'm assuming.
No, London, central London.
London Central. Love it. Okay. And we have Michelle here as well, which you're all going to get to know really well. Right.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. First off, I want to cover off on our wonderful sponsors, one of which is an amazing special projects agency here in Minneapolis known as Capsule, founded by a couple of really crazy guys who decided to go out and take on their own thing with research and design and then evolved into a whole bunch of other wonderful things. I don't know why I'm looking down here. I should be able to know this. Working with Hydro Flask, working with Red Wing Shoes, Patagonia, all kinds of amazing clients, right? And then around 2013, we started this event. It was a French style salon. That was Judy Bell's idea. We started to put this thing together, and Judy Bell goes, "Well, you're doing a French style salon." And we're like, "What's a French style salon?" Yes, that's what we're doing. And it evolved from there to what it is. And it's we get amazing speakers to come and have a conversation with us. Okay, so and a couple of other sponsors, Lake One. Do we see Ryan Rudd in the room? Is Ryan here? Has anyone seen Ryan? Oh, Ryan was going to be here and do a TikTok dance for us, but he is not. Ryan Rudd is our most shy sponsor. He has been to one event, and he's been a sponsor for us forever. So I want you to all look up Ryan Rudd on LinkedIn and link in with Ryan Rudd, R-U-U-D of Lake One. It's very funny. Every time I do this, he gets all these LinkedIn invitations. He's like, "You're such an asshole." And by the way, we swear on this, so it's okay. It's even though it is Mr. Bubble, anyway.
It's the only flipping reason I'm here.
Yeah, because you can't swear in that other business you're in. No, they don't allow it. Okay, and we're housed here in the offices of RSP Architects. They designed this space. It used to be a brewery, Grain Belt Beer, and which is a solid beer, good beer, made somewhere else now, but a beautiful space, an amazing space to be in. So we thank RSP because they designed this space. They house us in this wonderful little spot in the tower over there, and of course our co-host, myself, founder of Capsule, and Allie Kaplan, the most senior editor at Twin Cities Business Magazine.
I'm actually the editor-in-chief, Aaron.
Editor-in-chief?
Yeah, sorry.
I never understand all these titles in the whole publishing world. I just don't
You're always bringing me down.
Sorry. Oopsies. Yeah, okay.
All good. I'm happy to be here.
Also,
you don't need a co-host, but I'm always happy to be on the
you are
stage with you.
spectacular. So, and she's also the founder of Mother Of, also the co-host of a radio show with her mom. Also, there's like 10 other things you do. You do a podcast. Allie Kaplan is the epitome of an entrepreneur in the fact that she's juggling 10 things at the same time. And we always wonder how she does it.
What'd you say?
We always wonder how you do it. How do you get it done?
I have a couple extra hours in the day, and I'm not going to give away the secret. I don't know. Glutton for punishment. Yes, it's fun. You got to love what you do. That's
right. When it's a passion, it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
All right. And now to our guests. Nick, former head of marketing, global head of marketing at TikTok. And if you look him up on LinkedIn, an incredible array of impressive brands from Hulu, most recently FarFetch. And what was it before that? You were also at Taco Bell. Is that right?
Taco Bell, Samsung. Yeah, a few others.
Taco Bell.
Yes.
And now we're not going to talk about Taco Bell the whole time, but maybe if we could. Anyway, Hulu sounds cool too. We're not going to do too much of that. Anyway, and then of course, Michelle here in person, inside a company that has a massive brand that I don't think pretty much, has anyone heard of the Village Company before today? Anybody? Anybody? One, two, your employees of the Village
My
Company.
team, I hope, knows the
like
village.
Nice try, though. Nice try. It's a quiet, and this is really impressive what they've done and what they've got, and a quiet little company here in Minnesota housing Mr. Bubble.
Well, does anybody know Minnetonka Brands? So Minnetonka Brands evolved to be the Village Company.
Oh, okay, a little bit of history there.
The inventors of Calvin Klein obsession.
No
You
shit.
didn't know. Fun fact.
Fun fact. See, I can do this all day long. History stuff, I can do all. The problem is audiences generally fall asleep when I start talking history stuff. And we get thrown off of our podcast. They don't want us anymore. Anyway, okay. Let's start off with Nick and a little bit of background. And then I'll turn it over to Allie for her questions. But Nick, do you mind giving us some background on how you got to this moment in time? You can go as far back as you want.
How I got to this moment in time. I've been a career marketer, and I would say that the journey has been just wrought with crisis after crisis. I get to Taco Bell and they're sued for not using real beef, which is not true. They use real beef, but the perception was horrible. I get to Samsung, and one of my first launches, phones are catching on fire. I go to Hulu and we're acquired by Disney. I get to TikTok and we are in an executive order with the first Trump administration. And then I get to FarFetch and they're about to go under. So then we get acquired and I take a sabbatical and spend time with my kids, enjoy life, and go to London. So all in all, it's been a great journey, but I will say it's taught me quite a bit.
So the next company you go to, I should probably invest in because it's going to be acquired.
Or you short it, or you
Or
short
short
the
it because
company.
it's going to go under. Short
Yeah.
it. Actually, you're right. Probably better to short every stock, every. Wow, that's that. I didn't realize we were going to take that path, but that is funny. Crisis across every crisis. Yeah, fascinating. Okay.
Ready for me? Oh,
Yes, I was going to
Yeah.
let Michelle do her question for you. Your background.
Got it. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So my background is a little non-traditional to get to where I am today. I started out working at marketing agencies in the Twin Cities, working on big clients, FedEx, UHG, on different programs related to direct marketing, website development, et cetera. And then I got engaged, which was really fun, and decided to get married. And through that process, all of my friends were going out of town to get their wedding party dresses. There were designers that were up and coming that weren't available in the Twin Cities. And so I decided to take a step out onto my own and open up a bridal shop in the Twin Cities called Flutter Boutique. 7 years invested there, and I sold it. It's still alive and well in St. Anthony, Maine. It's called Flutter Bridal. The new owner, he's great. He's a wedding dress designer. He sells his dresses all over the world. They've now opened another boutique in Dallas, so it's thriving. If anyone's looking to, we have somebody in our staff that's getting married. If anyone else is getting married, I highly recommend checking them out. So once I sold that business, I just had no idea what I was going to do and started exploring agency work. Corporate marketing is something I always wanted to get into. And I met with the Village Company and fell in love with Mr. Bubble. It's such a great brand. They were looking for someone newer to work on that brand. I had kids that were 5 and 3. The brand was acquired in 2008 and had done okay, but was starting to slide a little. So they were looking for a turnaround. And I decided to take the opportunity and happily been there since.
Love that. And I'm not going to mention the member of our staff that's going to actually get married soon, who should actually visit that.
She should. They
She
have
should.
beautiful
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. She knows, but I'm not going to say anything because, it would be embarrassing to put her name up on the big screen or something like that. It'd be inappropriate. Anyway.
Flutter's a great shop. I remember when
I
you
know
opened
we
it.
were,
Yeah.
I think we had a little,
For sure.
some
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah. We wrote about it at Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine.
Yep.
Of course, all the connections. Nick, question for you. Let's talk about the speed of culture. How did you ensure, if we can go back to the TikTok chapter, that TikTok matched the speed of culture rather than just following the big trends, which are constantly changing?
Yeah, I think the thing that I realized at TikTok was grounded in this almost hubris that I had, where I assumed I knew the playbook in marketing leading up to it, just given all the stuff I'd been through. And upon getting to TikTok, it was almost like getting a glimpse into the future. Because when I joined TikTok, it was a little bit less than a year old. And looking into what they were building and how people were starting to consume the content on the platform, immediately made me realize that this was going to be a defining point in marketing where everything was going to be changed. And if we were to stick to these 8 to 12 week campaign cycles that we were all probably used to when, I was at places like Samsung and Hulu and Taco Bell, there's no way for you to be considered relevant at the speed of which TikTok trends just change, every 72 hours. So the push that we put to the team was, if we're claiming as a brand and as a company to be where culture starts, which is where we came up with the "It starts on TikTok" tagline, then we have to truly live that. And if we are doing campaign cycles in the way that we used to, 8 to 10 weeks, let's say, then by the time the campaign hits the consumer audience, it'll feel so outdated that it wouldn't even make sense. And they would say, like, is this what you claim to be, where culture starts? So we had to reverse engineer what it takes to build a campaign. And the task at hand was, can we create a campaign in near real time and get it from concept to national television in 72 hours? So 3 days was tight, but we ended up getting it done in 5 days. I think most people remember the ocean spray drinking gentleman that's longboarding down a street listening to Fleetwood Mac. That was actually our campaign that was sort of orchestrated through a lot of different, elements and groups to essentially make people realize or think, perception-wise, that TikTok was where culture started. So the way that I've seen this is not too different than what we've imparted on some of our closest partners earlier on. Some folks call it moving at the speed of culture. I called it marketing at the speed of culture. One of my close friends calls it fastvertising. But it's this idea of finding what's happening in culture, and instead of trying to, um, you know, take it over, just insert yourself into that cultural moment, but also find a way to engineer a cultural moment to make people talk about your brand.
Ryan Gosling seems to have that going on with like Aviator Gin, doesn't he? He seems to tap
Or
into the moment.
Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Gosling is
Ryan Reynolds.
stuck doing Barbie films, but yeah, Ryan Reynolds for sure has it going on with Aviation Gin and Mint Mobile and Wrexham AFC and all that stuff. So we were actually the first sponsor of Wrexham AFC, and the way that they modeled fast advertising was what we dubbed in our world the culture engine. So it's a very similar approach that is finding opportunities to engage, a conversation and bring it to life in a near real time way.
Fascinating. The speed and the truth that you had to do that in order to be legit, and that you are the brand that's at the center of that, right? It needed to be that. There's no other way, right? To live up to the promise that is TikTok, right? Otherwise, you couldn't do anything at all. It sounds like, really, right? You had to be wherever you showed up.
The one follow-up that I would have is, I mean, isn't there a danger for a brand if you do it poorly, if you do something that's really embarrassing or that fails or that all the teenagers think is just super lame and cringy? Could you risk hurting your brand when you're moving so quickly?
I think it's different than how it used to be in the sense that the half-life of content is probably less than a day. So it isn't a situation where you put something out there and there's a huge risk. Whereas I remember back in Taco Bell days and even Samsung days, if you put something out on Instagram or Twitter, there was this like big fear that that could be something that would completely cancel that brand or seem really cringy. And although cringy wasn't the word at the time, but whatever that word was at the time, it would not be seen very favorably. What I've seen today, you could look at brands like Duolingo, who've completely embraced, the world of TikTok and moving at the speed of culture and all this stuff. And as much as you may or may not like this whole Duo being killed off situation, which I don't fully understand, if I'm being honest, it's not something that people are saying, "Oh, that's so cringy." That like people are just playing with it, and other brands are jumping in, and people are, participating because even if it's seen as almost over the top ridiculous, it still seems to be working. So I don't judge things on a taste perspective anymore like I used to. I let the audience determine, what they want to engage with and how they want to play. And it seems like they're open to playing with a lot of things.
Is Mr. Bubble on TikTok?
Oh yeah, Mr. Bubble is very sad about Duolingo's passing. So we, we've done a whole little bit about Duolingo. No, Duolingo, I think, was inspirational for Mr. Bubble when we first we were early adopters on TikTok. And obviously we have this kids brand and we're trying to connect with this Gen Z audience because they're the next or they're the next level of parents that are going to be coming up and having kids. And so we had some discussion to decide that we are going to take the leap and try it out. It's a lot of, trial and failure when you're working on TikTok. And so, but our customers have engaged with Mr. Bubble. They love Mr. Bubble as a character. The mascot's done really well. And so he's really been a leader for us. And we've been able to capitalize on some of that content in unique and different ways. But yes, we're all very sad.
And then just on that point, the reason why I think it's such a good example is before, in the older way, the big element that was almost like a hurdle for brands was the media buy. And if you didn't have the money to do a large media buy, you just weren't able to get in front of your audience in a very efficient manner. And in this world, with the way that TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts is just feeding content in a completely different manner, Mr. Bubble, which is like a wonderful legacy fun brand that may not have huge budgets compared to its competitors, are able to break through and really challenge the status quo on what marketing looks like by doing this type of stuff, which is why I think the brands that start to do this and lean more into this will continue to win, and the ones that are stuck on this, let's do a big media buy, let's do all this TV stuff, and let's do what we used to do, they just won't be relevant.
Yeah, we completely agree with that. I mean, that's why we've been able to leap ahead of some of our competitors in the space, is because they just haven't found their way into those channels. So it's been really beneficial.
That's cool. It is a boring subject area, but I do want to cover the history of the Mr. Bubbles brand because you told me a little tidbit.
Mr. Bubble.
Mr. Bubble. Shit.
Oh, I caught that, but he said Mr. Bubbles brand, so it's.
Yeah, it's true.
Mr. Thank you.
The Mr. Bubble. The Mr. Bubble.
I got covered.
You're letting him off easy, Nick.
I let him off.
I owe you big.
I caught it. He said Mr. Bubbles brand.
Yeah.
All right. Good point. Good point.
Oh yeah.
So sensitive.
Mr. Bubbles. It's Mr.
It's because
Bubble.
Allison's here. She's really a stickler for that.
I said,
There's actually, you got
needed
it.
to
You have a TikTok on Mr. Bubbles versus Mr. Bubble. I watched that. I'm like, oh, see, they're really serious about it.
I know. See?
History. I'd love to hear the history.
History of Mr. Bubble, the brand itself,
Yes.
the
Yes.
character.
Yeah.
All right. So
The
Harold
origin story.
Schaefer started Mr. Bubble in 1961. So it was a luxury department store brand, and he wanted to make it affordable and accessible for all. So he took that formula, created the powdered bubble bath, and sold it to drugstores. And the unique feature, if you go back to the original box, which the character itself was actually created in Minneapolis by Fallon, for those that didn't know, the box in the front has a little boy, and it's all about getting clean in the tub. But if you flip the box around, it's this elegant looking woman, and she's relaxing, and it's all about me pampering. So depending on the clientele and where it was being sold, the store clerk could flip the box to, connect with whichever consumer was walking down the aisle.
Damn, that's a packaging move.
I know, it's a good strategy.
Right, the audience, depending on nicely
So he's
done.
evolved over time. He's been a pop culture icon for really almost since his inception. He's been in a lot of movies. The Jerk is probably one of the more popular ones. He's been on The Simpsons. Gigi Hadid's boyfriend wore a Mr. Bubble t-shirt and she posted it on Instagram. So lots of Mr. Bubble popping up in pop culture all over. And then the iconic scent is still the same as it was in 1961. So we've kept that and then expanded on it. So we went from powder to liquid, and then we just actually launched a powdered version of the original box from 1961. It was a limited edition. It's sold out. Now it's back in the vault. Maybe we'll bring it out for a 65th anniversary, which is next year. But that's his legacy.
It's so cool. I love that. Of course, that's me being nerdy. And
If you're in Medora, South Dakota, you can go to the Mr. Bubble, see the Mr. Bubble show and museum, and
it was in The Jerk, the movie The Jerk,
Yep.
Steve Martin.
yep. When he was in the bathtub, you can see the box of Mr. Bubble in the.
Oh, right. Classic. Okay. Oh, Allie, do you have a question?
Sure. Michelle, let's talk a little more just about kind of adapting. I mean, Mr. Bubble is a character that certainly lends itself to social media and everything. I mean, was it an obvious kind of organic, we're going to be on TikTok and Instagram and everywhere, or was that like a conscious decision for the team, how you're going to market this legacy brand today?
Well, to Nick's point earlier, we have very small budgets and we have a portfolio of brands, so we can't spend all our money on one brand, although we tend to spend more on Mr. Bubble. And competing with these big companies like Unilever and P&G, there's no way that we're ever going to be able to have the marketing spend that they have at the level that we're at. And so we had to find creative and unique ways to reach our target consumer and also give the buyer something to get excited about as well when we're walking into Walmart and Target and presenting our product assortment to them. And so when TikTok first came out, we've already been on Instagram, we've been on Facebook, and we just really hadn't found the right platform to bring out the personality of the brand. And so when we discussed it, it was a little bit of a risk at the time because there weren't a ton of brands on TikTok like ours. And we just decided to go for it. And again, trial and error, we found that everyone loved the mascot, embraced it. And so we just decided, it just took off from there.
Very cool.
Love that. I'm going to shift gears a little bit to just to the role of brands generally for Nick. We had a pre-conversation about brands in some cases not having a lot of relevance for people. And I'm curious about, from being behind the scenes, being in these companies, these content companies from Hulu to TikTok, the changing role of brands from your perspective. Is it changing? Are there ones that just don't get it and will never get it? Are there ones that are yet to adapt, or the ones that you see that are doing impressive things?
So wait, so the question is, are there brands that are not adapting to this new era?
Yeah. Yes, this new era of marketing.
I mean, of course, we see it all the time. And I would say that the reason why there's probably so many startup brands that are, putting a big dent in brands that you used to think were bulletproof, it's likely because of this shift in media. If you look at categories like, let's take beverages, like the amount of buzz we hear around companies like Liquid Death and Olipop and Poppy and name it, so on and so forth. A decade ago, it would have been impossible for these brands to have billion-dollar valuations after, 4 to 5 years, because they were up against the big media budgets of PepsiCo and Coca-Cola. So in today's age, the ones that can really break through from a content perspective and reach an audience that might seem niche, but that expands to end up being millions and millions of people, they have a much better shot than they used to, which is why more people are now bold enough to start their own brands. And then now you're going to also start to see, forget brands, you're going to start to see creators that have large audiences who will create their own brands and then sell their own version of water or prebiotic soda, or, hopefully not, but maybe even like their own bubble, soap thing. So that's sort of like the world that I'm seeing sort of that we're on the cusp of. And once that hits, it'll really be a race to see, which creators align with which types of products. And then, you'll eventually fill up your household with all these name brand stuff that aren't actually current brands. It'll be all these new brands.
Yeah, so massive changeover of types of brands that are showing up, because the ones that get it actually jump into these mediums and have a personality. It sounds like
it's even different for our category to Nick's point. So when I first started, the category was full of licensed products from Disney and Nickelodeon with all their characters on the bottles. But the problem is that there's so much content out there for kids now that they care less and less about those characters being on everything that they own. And they're so fickle in terms of changing their minds all the time that they just automatically gravitate towards new and interesting things. So to Nick's point, you get more of a variety in terms of what's in your bathroom, what's in your kitchen from a brand perspective than you did even 10 years ago, which has ultimately made it easier for Mr. Bubble because it's a character that parents know from their childhood and they can connect with their own kids as adults. And there's not a lot of that continuity anymore. So in our category, it's beneficial, but I definitely agree in like the world of products. I mean, Mr. Beast has chocolate bars that you can buy at an end cap at Target right now. And he's obviously made his, or got his start on social media. So I think it's definitely coming in the future.
Yeah. Does everyone know who Mr. Beast is? Okay, I would hope so. Right? Yeah, they're all okay. I don't know. Sometimes I ask and be like, who's Mr. Beast? And
do you know Mr. Beast?
I do. I've watched a couple of his videos. Yeah, he is a fascinating example of what's going on out there. Actually, here's my favorite Mr. Beast story: the chocolate bar story. So some of these retailers aren't able to staff to have enough people to face their product for them, right? So their product is laying down and other stuff and not properly faced inside of the retail environment. Mm-hmm. Mr. Beast sees this and he charges his community to go do that, to get them to face his product. I'm like, then you're doing this, you're unpaid. What are you doing? Because you love the brand so much, you're going to bring the
We need to
chocolate
try
forward?
that.
I know.
That's a
Isn't
good
that
idea.
I know. But I thought that's an interesting use of your community, right? Bring your chocolate bar to the front of the. Who knows what else they did with it when they showed like put it in front of the other Hershey bars or whatever they would do. That's like another technique.
Well, we would never suggest that, but just
No, that
you
would
know,
be
that'd be
inappropriate.
unethical.
Not cool. Right. It seems like there's like almost a horizon where Disney is less relevant because it's just so prolific and so everywhere. Not that Disney is your biggest competitor, but in a way, I mean, it's a collaborator. I'm assuming you licensed a little bit of Disney or not?
We've never licensed Disney. We did license Sesame Street. We had the license for 30 years. But we did resign it in my tenure simply because I love Sesame Street. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, just as a brand and what they stand for. It's just so great. But from a business perspective, just with the evolving world, just kids were not as interested in the characters, and particularly Elmo. I think the window where kids know Elmo, it's like age 2. So it just becomes a little trickier. And there's a place, I think, for licensing that's still going to be successful in other categories where you maybe have higher turnover of products, but our products live on the shelf for an entire year. So as a buyer, you have to be really confident that that character is going to be in the minds of kids for an entire year, which nowadays is probably really hard to come by. And so it's a harder bet for them to be able to rely on from a sales perspective.
Just
A
the
year,
counter to
that's-
that, there are some brands that can break through. We've seen Bluey just completely take off and just dominate not only like kids but also parents' share of mind. And I still think that, brands like Disney will eventually find a way. I don't think they're going to just like lay
Agree.
down and let all this, evolve and not be a part of it. I'm still a big brand person at heart, and I still think, really good brands and really great stories and IP will continue to thrive. It's just going to be a lot more competitive.
Is there rhyme or reason though, Nick? I'm curious what your thoughts are on like why Bluey? Why did that? I mean, why did that break through?
Yeah, so I try to think about the way that we reach audiences today in terms of like various cohorts. And then if you then take sub cohorts on how you want to reach them, which is like really targeted, you can actually break down something like a Bluey because it's not just the kids. If you see the number of videos of parents watching Bluey and then getting very like teary-eyed and feeling emotional and feeling, a bit of like nostalgia and almost like recognizing that they're in this moment that's a very fleeting moment of their lives, like you could basically break that parent into like 5 to 10 different sub cohorts and then create different episodes that are targeting each of them so that there's at least one episode that really resonates with me, but maybe another episode that really resonates with my wife and so on and so forth. You could just see that how, whether it was by design or not, they've been able to capture a lot of sub cohorts beyond what we might have thought was their intention, which would have been just, kids back in the day. So I think the idea of layering on different dimensions to the people that you're reaching is going to be a very effective strategy in the future. And I think Disney is starting to realize that. So whether it's looking at Moana or Encanto or these stories that have layers of like culture that's good for kids and for adults, you're going to see, I think, more of this type of storytelling come to life where it's like reaching multiple different audiences at the same time.
So to that point, I don't know if you've seen, but Disney just licensed, I think it's 5 of their princesses to Bath and Body Works. So while it may not be successful, like in the kids' bath aisle and a bubble bath today, like they have found a new outlet. And to Nick's point, like it's not just kids, it's teens, it's parents, it's those that have grown up with Disney and love it. So there's always different outlets to be able to get your brand out there.
As long as Teletubbies doesn't come back, that's all I care about. We just
There's always a chance.
please don't bring back the Teletubbies. Yeah, anyway, you have a question, Allie? Because I'm
Sure. Well, speaking of like what kids want and how, I mean, as branding people and marketers, you've got to figure out where to be and how to capture the audience, right? When everyone's looking at their phone. Nick, you had such an interesting insight when we were talking and went down some rabbit holes about the way that kids and teenagers today are consuming anything. The concert example. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we were doing some research as we were looking to launch TikTok Live, and we were trying to uncover sort of what that delta was in terms of the experience between watching a concert on your phone, so like live streaming it, or watching it in real life. So when we put out this survey and asked, mostly teens and early 20-year-olds how different, like what the different experiences were and which one they liked more, the feedback wasn't so much I like this more, I like this more. It was, can you explain what the difference is when you're explaining these two scenarios? And obviously, like me, I was blown away. I was like, I'm so confused at what, like, because the survey results came back horrible, and I asked the team that was doing, I was like, why did it turn out this way? And they literally said the questions from the respondents were, we don't know what the difference is between watching it live and watching it in real life. And that's when I said, like, oh my goodness, if they see it happening in real time on their phone, that to them is the same experience as being in, like, the front row of the concert. So knowing that that was going to be the trend that we were starting to see, it made us, like, hyper aware of, okay, we could go into TikTok Live and then even go into like live shopping, and which also launched TikTok Shop and a bunch of these other things, because the experience for people were just to be there in like the same date and time. It didn't matter if they were physically there in person, because people live through their phones nowadays. That's literally their portal to the world.
That's wild to
That
think
freaked
about.
me out. Yeah. Yeah. It was, which we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I do want to bring up what we had a little conversation about as it relates to AI and influencers and your perspective on that. Because that, if we're going to go there, and I'm going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, let's just get that off, get that Band-Aid pulled. Because it seemed to correlate to like a digital influencer versus a real influencer, and what is real. Give me your perspective on that, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it again, sad to say, but I don't know if there will be much distinction between a paid ambassador that's paid to tell someone what they feel about a brand versus a AI influencer that is also essentially given a script and telling people what they think about a brand. I think the relevance of certain celebrities and personalities, as we've all kind of been alluding to, are going to become less and less relevant. So, do you, potentially put a lot of money into hiring a celebrity to say what you want them to say about your brand, which has some risk to it because that person could be canceled, something could go wrong, they could say the wrong thing, they might be able to, do a really good job, and then they're using your competitors' products in public, and then people catch all that. So there's always risk. Or do you have a synthetic influencer that's doing the same thing that probably has a sizable audience and is able to be in a more safe, contained environment? And that struggle with brands and that debate right now is something that I've been hearing a lot. But you see more people testing the AI influencer and the AI like podcasts even, and nobody seems to be having an allergic reaction to it. So as that becomes more and more prevalent, I think people are just going to be lost to even distinguish between the two.
Yeah, next month's going to be an AI version of me up here, just so you know. That's it. We're transitioning over. That stuff just freaks the shit out of me, dude. Like this is, yeah. We had a recent example of this. Someone dropped our physics of brand book. I don't say someone, my business partner Brian, dropped it into, and I think it's called Notepad or something. It created a podcast, a conversation between two people
Yep.
based on our book. And if you listen to that podcast and you know and have read our book, it's like, holy shit, that's really good. They had little mistakes here and there, but it sounded like a podcast between two people. It was weird. And the fact that I get it, the risk piece totally makes sense. Though, of course, now I want to see if we can have a synthetic influencer do something riskier. Like, oh, look at that influencer got arrested. Like, really? How did they get arrested? I don't
Well,
get it.
to be honest, like that will be the type of stunts we might start to see for in the first brands that do those types of things. We'll get the headlines. It won't be repeatable, and it'll be very, just driven by like a headline. But that's we're going to see stuff like that all the time. It's going to be part of our everyday advertising occurrences.
Yeah. Who was the first celebrity that goes into detox? Whatever. But they seem to repeat that in Hollywood a lot. Anyway, goes like back and again and before. So next, let's see. Let's talk about Mr. Bubble. There's a great grandbaby. Is that right?
Well, I don't know. We haven't announced
said
anything
that.
like that. So this
You
I don't know,
didn't.
this
You
is
didn't
like,
call it that. There's a
My team is like,
60-year-old brand comes out with baby bubble.
well, I know, but Mr. Bubble is bubble-ier, so he could really be any age. I mean, he's
Oh.
60, but it's like different. It's like dog years, but the other way. So he's like in his mid-30s in bubble years.
Oh,
So he's
okay.
like
I
Benjamin
get that.
Button.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
It's like Bart Simpson. He doesn't
Yeah,
really
he doesn't age.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So he doesn't have a grandchild, but you did
Not
come
that
out
we
with a
know
baby
of.
bubble. Not that you know of. But you'd have come out with a baby bubble brand, right?
We have, yes.
That's fascinating that there's Mr. Bubbles, and that's like not that it's aged, but it's got a certain age category, and you've got baby bubble.
For kids, yep. So we just felt like it was a natural progression for Mr. Bubble to go into the baby category and start off with parents and caregivers right from the beginning. So Mr. Bubble is a great product and for creating those bath time memories, great sensory experience with bubbles. And so we've created the ultra gentle formula with a great yummy fragrance that my head of innovation, Michelle, and my creative team worked on together, and it's just launching. Yeah, they're here.
Congratulations. That's good. I still think it should be the
But we have
grandbaby.
lots of requests. So people love Mr. Bubble so much that people want a Mrs. Bubble. That could happen. I don't know. He is a pet. People want pet bubbles, Mr. Bubble pet bubbles. That's an
Really?
option.
Oh, that's sweet. You do have the big costume too. We were thinking like I would love to wear that big
Oh,
thing.
you are welcome to.
Really?
Mhm.
Who back there gets to be in the big Mr.
Oh, we
Bubble?
pass it around. So our kids have all mostly done it, I think. No, it's just Mr. Bubble. He's just him. There's no person in there.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just, that's who he is.
Sorry, the facade. I forgot.
Can't spoil the magic.
Spoil the magic.
No.
That's funny. Okay. Back to you, Allie. Do you have a question?
Sure. Well, Nick, let's talk a little bit about what you are. So you've now left FarFetch. You want to talk about FarFetch at all? Are there any like good learnings or insights from that, and kind of what's next for you?
Yeah. So I came out to London with the intention of just to travel with the family and hang out with the kids and be a full-time dad. I met the founder of FarFetch, who's an incredible guy, great visionary. I love the platform. I love the brands that they owned and joined. Obviously, I had no idea what the financial situation was. So 3 months after I joined, it was acquired. And in this, acquisition, the founding team and the C-suite all left and took a package. So I was part of that group that took a package. I would say like it was fleeting. It was fun, and it actually gave me more time with my family, which is what I'm most grateful for. As far as what I'm looking at now, I've always wanted to become a teacher. Like that's sort of like what drives me, and it's been why I go to the different places that I've been to with the intention of learning as much as I can about marketing, picking up different case studies from various industries to one day teach about all those in a classroom setting. And so I'm writing my first book, which is this idea of unlearning marketing and really just pointing out all the things that I thought I knew about marketing and how in a post TikTok world it had to have shifted and evolved, and talking about the brands that I've invested in and some of those as case studies and the ones that I think are really doing well. And I'm going to try to ask to see if I can put Mr. Bubble in there. But
I was just going to ask, like, what do we need to do to get in this book?
Yes, you're in the book. So the hope is that this book will equip not only like marketers or brands to do what they do better, but also just be more efficient, because I think there's a lot of waste in the space. Like, I don't think you need to have a full-time social agency anymore. I don't think you need to put a bunch of paid media in the paid social media like into the mix. And I think if there's one thing that I could sort of do, it'd be to like impart all the things that I've learned into like a cohesive, tangible, book for people to be able to like read it, take action against it, and then see the results for themselves. So that's what I've been working on right now, just doing projects for various friends and different companies to try to prove out the theories and iterate and then put those learnings into the book.
Dude, you should know Professor Ritson, Mr. Mark Ritson. I think he's in London. He's taught at the London School of Business. Here I am connecting him and networking with him right now. You should really, he is an iconic Professor Mark. You two would be two peas in a pod. He's very much a contrarian to everything that's going on. You'd love Professor Ritson. I'll connect you with him after
Okay,
this. But
thanks.
Though if you don't go work somewhere, we have no stocks to short. So we need some, because I can't short a university stock. That's not going to go. That's not going to give me anything at all.
I don't know. Who knows? That might not be far off from the truth with the way the education system is. So
Scary
who
truth.
knows?
Yeah. It goes to work for the London School of Business. The London School of Business is now shutting down. Holy shit. There's a pattern here. Okay. Back to Michelle. I'm curious about how do you manage the guidelines and the personality of Mr. Bubble inside the organization? You got a bunch of people, pushing boundaries. How much do you push? Like we had Liquid Death on and we had a conversation about, and they do crazy ass shit.
I love Liquid Death. They're great.
They just push it and they push it fast and it's amazing. And some stuff bombs. We don't really see the stuff that bombs. It's the stuff that's great that we see. But I'm curious what
I
you
don't
do as far as
actually know if there's
guidelines.
anything that bombs. We'll get to that later, but yeah, go ahead. And
How
share.
much of Liquid Death bombs?
I don't think much does. Like,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that it much does, but I think, if something does bomb, we don't see it because it doesn't get any attention.
Oh, I see.
Right? If
They
it
probably
bombed,
take it off.
yeah, they either take it down or it doesn't get any traction. Because he did say that he had things that are like, well, we thought that would do better. And so there's got to be stuff out there that doesn't hit. They don't have that much of a glow.
Well, I think we're always trying to push the boundaries. And so my team had this crazy idea the other day that I'm not going to share, but I'll tell you in private later. That's probably not appropriate for a kid's brand. But I think from an adult perspective, like Mr. Bubble is beloved by 0 to 99. So we have this adult audience that loves Mr. Bubble. They send us these great taglines like, I might not have Mr. Right, but I always have Mr. Bubble. So there's a fine line between trying to connect with that older audience or even that single person that, just is looking for a comfort in the bath to being able to target kids. And so we try to separate the two a little bit. But Mr. Bubble is such a great character because he's easy to evolve and create into new things. So one thing that we've done with our Fun in the Tub products is we've really created all of these different personalities for Mr. Bubble under the STEAM umbrella. So learning while getting clean is kind of like our new is a philosophy that we've been standing by for a couple of years now. So anything from an innovation perspective, we want to roll up under that umbrella. So you have Mr. Bubble's an astronaut, Mr. Bubble's an artist, Mr. Bubble's a scientist, Mr. Bubble's a magician, a chef, like all these things that kids can think about doing as they explore and play in the tub. And we create products that connect with that. So we just launched these Galaxy Bath Bombs, which was the vision of our creative director, Emily. She's wonderful. And basically what it is, it's bath bombs are just bath bombs. You put them in the tub, but when you create them as planets, and they're proportionally shaped to be the same size and scale of planets, and they have all the similar colors. And then you have facts on the back, not back of the packaging. Now you're learning while you're getting clean and playing, and you're interacting with your parent who's no one's on their phones. They're just having this moment together in the bath of learning through play. So that's kind of how we like to look at Mr. Bubbles evolving. And I feel like there's endless possibilities with the bubble. It can be whatever you want. So there's, more to come.
It's good to hear that you do have little boundaries that exist out there about like how adult does Mr. Bubbles get?
I know it's a fine line. I mean, I would love to push it more. Of course, you have people on the board that might not like you to push it that far. So there's some responsibilities you need to have.
Just put it on TikTok. The board members aren't on TikTok anyways.
That is a very good point, Nick. That's how I get a lot of stuff to slide through. They just have no idea.
Yeah.
They don't even know. They'll never know. They'll never see it.
Their
kids will show it to them. That's what their grandkids maybe will show it to them. Like,
and when we push the boundaries, for the most part, it's a really good reception. Every once in a while, even if we show somebody covered in bubbles in the bathtub, it's like we're doing a bad service to the world because we're showing somebody covered in bubbles. So it's just people are sensitive about different topics. And so you just have to try to push as much as you can and pull back where you seem to be getting a little bit of pushback from the consumers.
Yeah, so they do voice things back and you listen and
all the time.
All the time. Yeah, they have probably a lot of history with the brand. Yeah, that's cool. The multiple personalities. It can have multiple personalities. That's fine. That's cool. All kinds of different backgrounds. Okay, so the next part of this is we're going to go to the audience and they're going to have questions for each of you. I do want to set one big boundary. Nick comes out of TikTok, and there's been some controversy around TikTok, and there's some things he can't talk about as it relates to TikTok. So if you're asking about something related to that, you're not going to get an answer because we do not want to see Nick in prison. We'd rather see him at a university than in prison. And so let's not do that. But I'm just going to, any questions from the audience for our next? Yes, Andrew.
First of all, Nick, we see a digital keyboard in the background. So maybe you would indulge us in some outro music when we're all done.
I would, but my kids are sleeping and they're like in the
Ah,
room over
yes.
there.
Okay.
So I can't just go jam on that, but that would have been fun.
You're off the hook. I have a question. I did not know that Ocean Spray Fleetwood Mac spot was a campaign, that was deliberate. I thought that was a perfect example of a viral, organic moment. It makes me wonder, when a brand engages with an agency, so Michelle, maybe this is a question for you as well. When a brand engages as a client around a TikTok campaign, how would you describe the differences between that engagement and a previous, more conventional engagement for paid media, where you would look at demographics, ethnography, some of those standard KPIs or matrices? What's the difference when you're pulling off a campaign on a platform like TikTok?
There's so many parts to that question that I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. Um, One, I don't know if having an agency would be more effective than doing it yourself. That's the first thing. So when you said what would you talk to an agency, like I actually don't know why you'd use the agency. Um, uh,
Ow. Hello.
Agencies
I'm
are
right
good for other
here.
things,
You
just
brought
maybe
this
not social
together.
content.
Yeah,
You're
I
putting yourself
invited
out of
you
a
here.
job.
I know. We're not that type of agency, though.
no,
We're
you're
a
not
better.
that type of agency. I'm not saying no agency. I
Yeah.
mean like a social agency specifically. Um,
Thank you.
Secondly, I would say the idea of demographics and you said like ethnographies and all those other things. Um, it's interesting to if you like were able to look behind the scenes at how uh, the way the content is distributed. It doesn't look into much of that at all. It just puts people into content consumption buckets. So someone who consumes a certain type of content might be various ages as somebody else, but they might all watch the same content, which is why they're in a specific content bucket. So the way that we were engineering a little bit of that was we happened to have like a media buy that was already ready to go, and it was specifically around NBA and MLB. So that was like what we had. The theory that I had was that if we give people a taste of TikTok, they might actually enjoy it and then want to try it. And this was during a period where we were trying to age the app up because we owned the teens. We didn't have anyone older than like 25 on the app. And in that moment, we also recognized that the type of content that someone would consume when they're watching or when they're watching sports would likely be stuff that felt nostalgic, had someone that looked more like relatable to them, and had this feeling of being free, especially in the midst of like COVID. So when that video first took off, we kind of looked at the bank of content that we thought had a propensity to go viral, and that was among one of the ones that we thought could be viral. So then we immediately reached out to the individual and said, "We love this video. It's not getting that much momentum right now, but we think it can. Do you mind if we use it for this campaign and boost it?" Obviously, the person said yes. From there, we then contacted Fleetwood Mac's team, and so got in touch with Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks and said, "Would you like your song to get back on the top of the charts?" And they said yes, obviously. So we said, "Then all we need you to do is create a video that's a parody of this, and we can stitch it together." So they did Mick Fleetwood drinking ocean spray and longboarding down, and then Stevie Nicks putting on her roller skates as if she was about to go and do something similar. And then they sent us those videos. We then, in 3 days, stitched together those, but since they pushed it out publicly, people then saw that Fleetwood Mac was involved. So then everybody wanted to create their version of it, and everyone ran to the stores and got Ocean Spray. So then we reached out to Ocean Spray and said, "Would you like to be involved with this whole situation? We think we can sell out Ocean Spray." And they said, "Absolutely." So they helped fund the license for us to use the rights to the song, and it became this nice win-win-win across the board. We then pushed that out on that media buy across NBA and MLB, and sure enough, everyone who saw it immediately fell in love with it. And then we also orchestrated that individual to go on talk shows and other things, because at the end of the day, when something goes really viral, you see them being interviewed on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or doing whatever else there is. So if you just break down the components of what an output of a viral video looks like, and then you work backwards to say, okay, well, it doesn't cost that much to plug someone in to do this, and it doesn't cost that much to do that, you might be able to engineer your own virality without actually putting as much money as you think you would need to put. And then you have a guaranteed hit in that case.
Wow, dude. We've talked about this in the past here, like just the idea of engineering your own virality, which I struggle to say that out loud, but the fact that you talked about it, and of course you're coming from the other side and able to see the math and work the algorithm in your favor to a certain degree. Fascinating. Any perspective on that, Michelle, before I send it out to the audience?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that video itself was probably what got us to even talking about TikTok and the possibility of doing something from a brand perspective, just because it clearly went viral. And I think that's the hardest part as a brand, I think, is trying to figure out what on TikTok should you post about. I totally agree that having an agency can be a big challenge because they don't know your brand that well. They can't react necessarily as fast as you can. So it's really, there's so much content out there. It's like really finding those sweet spots and what's going to work for your brand and how can you connect your brand to these different trends that are happening. And while not making it seem forced, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that brands probably face. We've had a couple of TikToks that have gone viral just because we, saw something that really made sense for our brand and that we could jump in on it really at the early stage. Because if you come at it too late, it's past Nick's point, it's over. You're not going to get the views. So you really have to be able to move quickly and be nimble when it comes to social. But it can really pay off, and it was it's been very successful for us in that standpoint.
Awesome. Yeah, it is fascinating to watch things that pop and try to study them as to what tapped into culture. There was just the Walmart rebrand in our world of like watching the Walmart rebrand go viral in the worst way possible, right? If everyone saw that go around like, hey, we got a new logo too, it'd be side by side what they're new and their existing logo, right?
Well, I think it's like we listen to our kids. Like our kids often have really good ideas. Like my daughter will be like, Mom, I saw this TikTok. It's perfect for Mr. Bubble. I always listen to and look at what she's saying. And I send all these TikToks to Allison's in charge of our social media. And most of them she just deletes. I'm like, I don't know if there's anything here, but this is what's trending on TikTok. So because everyone gets different algorithms, so you're not going to see all the different things that are viral in one particular moment. So you really need to tap into different audiences and understand what they're seeing on social media and then see if that's something you can relate to your own brands.
Okay, more questions from our audience. Anyone? Yes.
There are so many different directions I could go with this, and I have lots of things in my head right now, so I'm going to try and narrow it down a little bit. But thinking about how we generate content, for early on when social media was kind of first becoming mainstream, I feel like there was a concern about how do we not put too much content out there? Because especially when those algorithms were pretty limited, you didn't want people to get tired of seeing you in their feed. Are we at a point where that's not an issue anymore, where more is better? Or is there still such a thing as having too much content or oversaturating your own brand with social media content?
I could take a stab at that. Are you speaking on behalf of a specific brand by any chance?
Is there one that's become more prolific than it should be?
Well, no, like the reason I'm asking is because
Definitely not us.
yeah, like take whatever you think the most popular brand is that gets, high virality of all of their content. What would good look like? Is it 10 million views per video? Is it 20 million views per video? Like let's say it's 20 million views per video. Like that's a big number, right? That's what percent of that is 1.4 billion daily active users on the platform. I think 20 million out of 100, 1.4 billion is still very small. So if you think about the way that the algos are working, they're essentially feeding content to the most likely person to engage all the way through with that piece of content. And because people tend to have different tastes, you're only going to reach, a subset of that total population. So in the same way that if you look at like Super Bowl ads, there's no way that anyone loved every single ad. There's some ads that you like, there's some ads that you probably hated, there's some ads that you thought were just ridiculous and it didn't make sense to you. That's because different advertisers are trying to reach a different subset of the 135 million people that are watching the Super Bowl. Just scale that by 10, because on TikTok, you're literally having 10 times the number of people that watch a Super Bowl on that platform every day, watching it for 90 to 100 minutes. So with that said, you could make 10 times the amount of content that you're making today, and it wouldn't even put a dent in the number of people that you're actually reaching.
Holy shit. Yeah, 10 times the Super Bowl. I don't think
Yeah,
really
every day,
people get the,
every day,
yeah.
every single day. There's 10 times the number of people that watch the Super Bowl that are on TikTok, and they're on it for 90 to 100 minutes on average.
Yeah. That's profound, right? I mean, just like what we're occupying our time with versus what gets attention around marketing, design, and all things related, right? Oh, it's the Super Bowl. We got to watch the commercials. Yeah, that's a drip by comparison. Fascinating.
That's why when people are telling me, oh, like we don't want to fully invest in social, or we're still optimizing for television, but we'll do a cut down of that and put it on social, it's where I'm just like, you have it completely backwards. Like, if anything, make really good content that works organically on social, and then now you have your TV ad. Like, it shouldn't be the other way around like it used to be. It really should be this way first, because you're now testing into what your audience would like to see, and then you could throw it out there with a big television buy. And that's if you even need that, because you're still going to be reaching, in that case, probably the same people. So I just don't understand how people are recognizing that, content consumption has changed so dramatically, and yet they're still using the same playbook in the past. That'd be like if the TV was just invented and everyone's running to get newspaper ads. It's like, we're past that now, aren't we?
I do think I hear a lot of brands talking about like, well, TikTok isn't our audience. We're more LinkedIn, or our customers are older. We're Facebook.
Yeah.
Is that the wrong way to think about it too?
Yeah. I would say, just from the stats that I'm somewhat familiar with, and I think these are all public stats, so this is nothing confidential. If you have roughly 1.4 billion people on that platform every day, and you're excluding India because it's banned there, and you're excluding China because TikTok's not in China, it's a different app. It's like a sister app. So 1.4 billion people, and you take away the places that equate to 3 billion total people, let's say. So you have 1.4 out of 5 billion total people. Of the 5 billion people, how many of them have smartphones? You're probably down to about 3. So half of the people who have a smartphone are on TikTok every single day. So if you look at those numbers, half of that population aren't just teens anymore. It's probably going to be the entire subset of people who own smartphones. So if you want to reach someone who has a smartphone, that's one really good way to do it. Now, Instagram is also equally good, so I'm not just advocating for TikTok and not the other platforms, because they all have that kind of reach. But to say that, like, I can't reach an adult that's 50 to 60 on these social platforms is a complete myth nowadays, because if they have a smartphone, they're on one of these.
The Capsule team is now doing TikTok videos tomorrow. That's what we're doing all day long. That's what we're doing.
Do you have a TikTok page?
Do we have a TikTok page? No, we do not have a TikTok page. I know. Oh goodness, right here. Sorry, Nick.
You know
did
what
ding
Aaron's
at
doing
me.
tonight.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing tonight. But no, a TikTok page. No. But I agree with the argument. It's fascinating, right? The math is there.
But what I will
Intriguing.
advocate for something like LinkedIn, just to that question, it's a different mindset. Like, I'm going to TikTok
Totally.
to be entertained, right? That's like an insight that we found earlier on. It's not to be social, it's literally to be entertained. I watch TikToks, whereas I check Instagram, I check Facebook, I check Twitter. When it comes to LinkedIn, that's where I'm trying to conduct business to a degree. I'm trying to find leads. I'm trying to generate my network. I'm trying to do different things. So if you want to not only grab people, but grab them in the right frame of mind to have a better conversion rate for what you want to do, it's a very clear example of why you have two different mediums or two different platforms, and why you would still use both of them, but just use them for different reasons and at different times, because you're just trying to reach people in a different moment. Like, just like if I were a food company, I'd want to hit people right when they're about to be hungry, right? That'd be the most efficient way to reach someone with an advertisement. It's like, if right when they're about to be hungry, I show them an ad for Taco Bell, they're more likely to go to Taco Bell right then. So just like if I'm trying to reach someone while they're thinking about work, or if I'm reaching someone while they just want to be entertained, these are just various platforms that you could use to do that.
Yeah, we use TikTok very differently than we use Instagram, Facebook, the other platforms. Even our digital and paid media is different than TikTok. So if you're trying to have one strategy that fits all, I personally don't think that works well. And even within our brand portfolio, we use TikTok for different reasons, or in different ways for each of those brands. And some of the brands we don't even have on TikTok because it's not the right timing for it. But I think you definitely need to think about those platforms differently. And we mostly use TikTok for entertaining for Mr. Bubble. We're not trying to necessarily sell you a specific product.
So we're not doing TikTok videos.
Although I am curious, Nick, what you think about TikTok Shop. We haven't really talked about that.
But what?
TikTok Shop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like what do I think about it in general?
Well, and do you think it's going to be, the next platform to take over from an e-commerce perspective? Is it as big as everyone's claiming it's going to be?
Yes, but I'd clarify. It didn't end up being what I first envisioned it when we were writing the initial strategy for it. It ended up becoming more diluted than what I think we initially wanted it to be. But in the like original strategy, the way that I'd framed it was there is no digital mall. We have like digital Costco's. So like when I go to Amazon, as an example, I know exactly what I want to buy. I have my list. I go through it. I put it all in my cart and I try to get out as quickly as I can. Like that's the Amazon. That's how I treat Costco or Target or things along those lines, like in the physical space. When I was a kid, I would go to the mall with my friends with the intention to have fun, hang out, and I would spontaneously see something in a shop that would make us all want to go inside. And then we would maybe buy that without even having the foresight that we were going to go make that purchase. TikTok is the only place that actually has that kind of environment where I'm going to be entertained. I'm scrolling through, I see something. This whole hashtag that we created back in the day with TikTok made me buy it is like stemmed from this insight that you see something, you want to know where it is, and then you eventually make that purchase. If you can then reduce that friction and make it so when someone sees something that they're really excited that they spontaneously want to buy and you give them one click to be able to make that purchase, it's pretty game changing. So I think we're going to see a lot more startup brands who are taking advantage of the free content distribution on TikTok and then providing products that people can buy instantly. They're gonna shake up the CPG and food and beverage space in a significant way in the near future.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting just because a lot of brands aren't on TikTok. Like we do have a TikTok shop. I do think that part's interesting that, it's just a competitive advantage for the big behemoths that don't even know how to get there.
Fascinating. Okay. And unfortunately, we're at the end of our hour, and it freaking guy went by way too fast for me. It went back, like as you're staring at your TikTok screen, right, and just going through. That's how fast it went. It's like, oh my God, an hour's gone. What's happened to my life? Okay, so I want to thank you, Nick. That was amazing, and Michelle, that was obviously phenomenal as well. Great. Insights for us, for our audience. I don't have a really window for more questions because we're at the end of our hour. And Allie, thank you for being my co-host again.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
So I want to finish it off with a couple of little notes and details. One, we have posters. The capsule values posters are over there. So if you're exiting, please walk by those and check those out. Designed by the capsule team members. Each one of them centered around our values. There's actually 4 in the card form. The 4th one's yet to come out. We're doing 6 of these total. You can buy them one off. You can buy them as a set once they're all out. Either way, you should buy one of them. Thank you. Andrew did it. You're a good man. Right. We're trying to fund the arts wherever we can. Thank you for that. Anyway, so the posters. And then next month, we have, this is one of the things I've talked about that I'm most proud about this event that we put on, is we have an amazing number of past speakers who show up. And we actually have one of our past speakers, Paul Moody, who's here tonight, who's actually going to be a speaker next month. Paul Moody, who brought back, or was part of the team that brought back Faribault Woolen Mills. He's sitting right over there. He's trying to cover his face so nobody sees him because you'll see him next month. And he is on with the head of marketing from Dairy Queen, Maria, and it's going to be an absolutely amazing show. So we're going to talk ice cream and wool. I don't know. We do these weird things. And apparently we're going to have llamas on at some point in time. Llamas.
Maybe you're going to invent a new ice cream flavor through that. And it sounds
Yes, an ice cream flavor that tastes like wool.
Well, it's been weirder things.
Yeah, I mean the wool.
You
would keep
could do
your
a
hand
cotton,
warm
it'll be
while
a
you're
cotton
eating ice
candy
cream.
flavor. So it won't be wool. You could just make it cotton candy and it'll be like fluffy with a little bit of wool bits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nick's got it.
Looks like wool.
Yeah.
Tastes like cotton candy.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, on that note, we're done. Thank you all. Thank you for another conversation.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Thank you.
Go to sleep.
Thank
See
you.
you, man.
See ya.